Okay, another thing on your Subaru maintenance list should be to check your differential fluid. It's filled with 80W90, and that bottom bolt is a drain hole, and the top bolt is a fill hole. And you want to check that once every couple of years. Unless you have a leak, then you're going to want to check that more often. But it should be filled to the bottom of that top hole. So when you take that bolt out, you should fill it until it starts dripping out that top hole. And the car should be on a level surface when you do this. Okay, another tip for you: if you have an automatic transmission, your dipstick is going to be located on the driver's side, and it's that yellow loop there, up back near the firewall, close to the brake booster. Here's the brake booster, the yellow cap, and that's that yellow dipstick tube right there, that yellow handle. That's for your automatic transmission. Now you want to make sure the engine's running when you check that. Okay, and for the front differential, because these are all-wheel drive vehicles, I don't know if you can see, there's another dipstick on the passenger side towards the firewall, and it's way down there. It's that yellow handle. This is your air filter cover here, and there's the firewall, and that's an air conditioning hose there, and way down there is a yellow handle. That's to check your front differential fluid. Now that's gear weight oil that goes in there. It's 80W90. It'll go in there, and there's a drain plug down at the bottom of the transaxle for draining that. So those are a few of the fluid checks on a Subaru all-wheel drive. Okay, another tip for you Subaru owners out there is your timing belt. It's right behind this plastic cover here. And if you're fairly mechanically inclined, you can change that yourself. That should be changed every 50,000 miles. What you need to do, I'm not going to take it off because I changed my timing belt about a year ago. But what you need to do is you're going to have to take off all your belts, and you're going to have to take your fans off, these electric fans right here, and this bracket. Take your coolant bottle off, cover bottle, and then it's basically three-piece cover. And you can see there's bolts all around the edges you have to take off, and the most difficult part of the whole thing is getting this crank pulley off. And do yourself a big favor and get the proper tool to take that crank pulley off. This is a 98 Subaru 2.2 liter engine. This tool, I believe, will work on 2.5 liter also. And see those little prongs on there sticking out? Those fit right into the harmonic balancer crank pulley right there. And it's a counter holder, so you put that into the pulley like so, and now you've got a really long leverage bar to hold the engine from turning while you loosen that center bolt. I'd have to look up the specs, but I think that tightens to like about 100 or 150 foot-pounds. A lot of torque. And if you don't get this tool to retighten it, the engine's going to spin when you go to retighten it. So best to get the tool. They're about $100 on eBay. If that crank pulley bolt loosens up after you reinstall it and you don't have it tight enough, what will happen, the keyway will get all baggy in there, it'll rattle, and that may cause the ignition to retard. It may cause the computer to retard your ignition timing, and you'll probably get a code. I've seen that happen before. So this is your counter holder. Holds the engine from turning. Most important tool, changing timing belt on the Subaru. Okay, here's some more tips on the timing belt. This goes for the 2.2 liter 98 Subaru engine. 2.5 may be a little different, and different years may have different pulleys and different type of tensioner on the belt itself. But this is a diagram of the alignment for the timing belt. Make sure your arrow's pointing in the right direction, the rotation. And there's on the timing cover itself, the little plastic part in the back there, there's going to be some dots or a little line, and you line those lines on the belt with that line on either side. And with your crank sprocket pulley right here, there's going to be a dot on the crank pulley, and you line that dot up with the top there. So you want to make sure everything's aligned, because Subaru engine is not a clearance engine, and if you don't have everything aligned properly, you end up bending the valves in the engine when you start it. So it's very important. That's another important reason why you want to make sure you change that every 50,000 miles. Again, depending on the year and model of Subaru you have, the time for changing your belt may be different, but I'd recommend 50,000 miles. And here's some of the specs for tightening. So there's your crankshaft pulley bolt. It gets tightened from between 86 and 100 foot-pounds. And then the metric is on right there, what you would tighten it if you had a metric. And these are for the idler bolts. And other ones. These are the specs for those. Everything, as long as you have the covers off. Good thing to check is if you have a leak in the front of your engine, this seal behind this drive gear right here, drives the belt, that has a tendency to leak after you get maybe 100,000 miles on the car, or depending on how old the vehicle is. And it's not that hard to change as long as you have the belt off. You might as well change that, and a lot of times the cam seals will leak too. So there's some seals behind here, behind each of these pulleys. And while you have this off, make sure there's no play in your idler pulleys here. Make sure the bearings aren't all worn out, and just check them all. Just kind of take the pulley and move it a little bit. If it rattles quite a bit, or if it's tight, change them as long as you get it off. Another thing, this is the water pump right here. To change the water pump, you have to take the timing belt off. So if you have a coolant leak in the front, that may be your problem. Some people like to change that after you get 150, 200,000 miles on your engine. Me personally, I'll just wait for it to start leaking. It's not going to be a catastrophic leak. It'll start out as a real tiny leak, and you'll catch it and change it when it needs to be changed. So there's some tips on Subaru.